Les from Cooke. We're gonna take a look here at our special flare full frame anamorphics.
Sure. Glad you came by.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
We introduced these, I think, at IBC last year. We announced them.
Okay.
We're just starting to deliver them now, but we put a lot of effort and thought into the full frame anamorphics because it's a different ratio than Super 35 anamorphics.
Right.
It's these are 3x2 as opposed to 4x3. But we wanted the final product to be able to intercut with our traditional anamorphics. So we put a lot of thought into what worked best.
It's 1.8 times. That's different than what people are used to.
That's right. They're used to 2. The problem on 3x2 is if you want to use every pixel and you want to get to a release print of 2.4 ratio,
right,
it would be a 1.6 times. The trouble with 1.6 is it's like being a little bit pregnant. It's not really anamorphic looking,
right. It's a little too spherical
yeah.
feeling.
And the problem with 2x, which is where you want to go, is that to crop that down to 2.4, you lose about 25% of the pixels, which is too big a loss. You're
yeah.
throwing it away.
Right.
And if you said, okay, I'll use a 2x, but I'll use it over the full frame, you're shooting at about a 3.1 ratio, which is just not very pleasing.
No.
So 1.8 is really the sweet spot.
Okay.
You lose about 10% of the pixels if you crop to 2.4, which is an acceptable loss. But if you shoot full frame, you're at 2.7. And 2.7 looks great. 2.7 is just a little shy of Ultra Panavision, which is 276. So it's a great looking format. So we thought that 1.8 was just a win-win-win. It's almost indistinguishable from a 2x squeeze. And in fact, on the website, on our Cooke Optics Vimeo site, there's some test footage where we shot with the 50mm full frame lens, anamorphic lens, and the 50mm regular anamorphic lens. It's almost indistinguishable, except at the very end. The very end at 2x, bokeh tends to go from oval to rectilinear, whereas at 1.8, it still stays really nice and oval. So some people like it.
That's the thing, in a way. It's the subtle differences is actually a little bit smoother,
yeah.
a little bit more rounded. I find the 2x bokeh can be a little bit harsh.
Yeah. Well, again,
it's a preference, right?
It's a preference. We've shown that to some DPs, and they say, "Wow, that's really nice. I like the 1.8." And other ones said, "I really want a little bit more." So it's purely subjective.
Yeah. And I also don't want to take for granted. Can we talk a little bit about this is a true front anamorphic?
That's
because there are lenses out there that are not anamorphic.
It's really important to understand the difference between front and rear anamorphic.
Right.
To get an anamorphic look, you have to do your anamorphic work in front of the iris. There's no way around that. So all of our lenses are, while the front element is not anamorphic, all of our anamorphic elements are in front of the iris. So we get an anamorphic character out the back. If you have an rear anamorphic lens, you get the coverage, but you get none of the character. Excuse me.
Yep.
So
you don't get the oval bokeh, you don't get the beautiful flaring that we're probably getting staring into the sun right now.
And we make our lenses in 2 versions, SF, which is special flare, and non-SF. They all have the same distortion characteristics. We did not try to design a flat anamorphic lens. We try to do it very traditional, because if you want a flat anamorphic lens, you probably should just shoot spherical. It's easier, it's faster, it's cheaper. The only good reason to shoot anamorphic is you want the character of anamorphic. And anamorphic lenses, by design, are, the term kludge? It's a computer term where you sort of fit things together that don't actually belong together.
Sure.
That's an anamorphic lens.
Right.
Because this is a 40mm lens, which means in the vertical axis it's a 40mm lens. But on the horizontal axis, it's really a 20 millimeter lens that the cylindrical optics, the anamorphic optics, squeeze down. And
it's
then
actually a bent piece of glass.
it's a cylindrical piece
Cylindrical piece of glass.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, and well, you can. It's why you get that. You get the oval. You get that sort of that cat's eye look when you look in the front. So it's the anamorphic character comes from. If you think about that, we've got a 20 millimeter lens and a 40 millimeter lens. Well, the depth of field on a 40 millimeter lens is different than the 20 millimeter lens.
Right.
So we have two depths of field. That's why you get it. The bokeh goes elliptical because you've got two depths of field working. But that translates anywhere in the image, which is one of those things, when non-industry people look at a film, and it's a true anamorphic film, not just a Super 35 cropped to wide. Now they don't sit there and say, "Whoa, look, this is a Super 35. I mean, this is an anamorphic film."
Sure.
I can tell.
Sure.
No, but somewhere in the back of their mind, it's visually different. You know, the bokeh is different. They're probably having trouble resolving these two depths of field. It makes the image more interesting.
It's more
So
complex.
somewhere in the back of their brain, it's saying, pretty cool, or it's more interesting, or they're saying it's shit. I mean, one or the other. But usually, I think people find anamorphic simply more interesting, visually interesting, and you know,
It take you to a different place than real world. Yeah.
And you know, we resisted doing anamorphic lenses for years. I've owned Cooke for 21 years now, and until digital cameras came out, we really resisted. People were asking us, but we resisted doing it because, you know, the anamorphic world in film, Panavision owns that, period. They were the only company that had enough lenses and enough cameras. And while a lot of rental houses would approach us and say, we want to take on Panavision, when you went through the numbers with them, you know, to do a big $100, $200 million film, you're not talking one set of lenses, you're talking 5, 6 sets of lenses.
Right.
And you go through the numbers and they would all shy away. And that's before you modify, these were in film world, and so you had other modifications to do to shoot that. Well, digital comes out, and I would venture to say that a young DOP has never seen a squeezed image. Whereas the film guys, it was squeezed for the whole process until you projected it. You were working with a squeezed image.
I never actually thought about that.
And I would imagine a young person today has no idea what's really going on, that on the chip here, the image is squeezed, but you know, you flip the button or you set the setting, and so everywhere you deal with the image now, it's unsqueezed.
Right.
So I would bet you they don't really understand what's happening.
So it's just become so easy now.
Yeah.
Wow.
But the other key thing, certainly being easy is important, but the key thing is digital, while being a very democratizing format, is sterile and boring. So people were looking for ways from day one to make it, you know, I hate to say it, not as perfect, but to make it more cinematic and take the edge off what could be a video-looking look. So what did they do? They started using old speed Panchros that people were throwing away just a year before.
Yep.
I can't give this thing away, throw it away, it's worth $100. Now they're selling old speed Panchros for thousands.
Oh, yeah.
And then they're putting thousands into them to you know, put a new mount on it.
Yeah.
That's what made my decision easy to go to anamorphic. Same thing, you know, we you know, looking at the old speed Panchros, we came out with the Panchro Classics, which are basically taking those old designs, modernizing them, but keeping the same look and feel, because you're going to run, sooner or later, you run out of old speed Panchros, right? Or you scratch your front element, you got to buy it. So we eliminated that by the Panchro Classics.
And I think people love that vintage character, but having used them enough, they were also getting sick of having to deal with all the inconsistencies.
A different lookup table for every lens. So, we've eliminated that, and we still kept the personality.
Yeah, that's one of the things I appreciate about, especially those series of lenses.
Yeah, yeah.
You're paying attention to the quality
Yeah.
that people want, not just going for perfect. Don't get me wrong. I
Well,
mean, the build quality.
No,
is
some of our competitors go for what they think is a perfect lens.
Right.
But I like to say ultimate resolution does not necessarily make an image that anybody wants to see.
It's true.
As proof by what people are doing to their digital cameras to knock it down a little bit.
Right.
So we try to give you tools that that you need, and not tools we like, but tools that you need. Luckily, I think Cooke has done that for over 100 years.
And the 1.8 times specifically, you're leading with that.
Yes.
That's right. I think are the camera manufacturers catching up with
All
the
the,
D-squeeze
no,
for
all
that,
all the main manufacturers like Arri and Red and
I think Sony with their Venice.
and Sony with Venice put a 1.8
Okay.
D-squeeze in.
So
Yeah.
leading with that, and
We're leading with that, and
people are catching up.
and yeah, I think it's going to go, and they're doing very well. So, and I really think with these lenses at 1.8, I think it won't be appropriate for every story, but I think 2.4 disappears. 2.7 is such a beautiful look.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised with full frame being released in 2.7.
Interesting. So a whole new delivery size, basically.
Well, as I said, it's not unknown. His Super Panavision was 2.76.
Okay.
Even though that was shot, those lenses I think are a 1.25 squeeze. They were full frame, but anyway, I mean, there's so many choices.
There's
now.
a lot of math involved
Yeah.
now with the new sensor sizes
Yeah.
and new squeeze ratios.
And it's a lot of choices for cinematographers.
Yeah.
So it's good for them.
Thank you for walking us through it, Les. Pleasure.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks a lot.